Seeing as we have a quorum, I will call this meeting of the Hillsboro School District to order. We'll begin today as we always do with our flag salute. For those of us in the room, the flag is at the back window there. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we gather here today, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that our district service area is on the occupied traditional homelands of the Atfality Indigenous people, lands we now call Washington County in the state of Oregon. We honor the Indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand on, the Tualatin Kalapuya, Kathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Malala, bands of the Chinook, and many other Indigenous nations of the Columbia River. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their ancestors. We also recognize the urban, Indigenous, Native First Peoples community living in the metro area, which includes over 400 tribal nations. The Hillsboro School District is committed to the recognition and education regarding tribal and local history and working with our local tribes in partnership. All right. Oh, proclamations. The Hillsboro School District recognizes that family and community involvement is a significant factor in the success of schools. By becoming a volunteer family and community members are providing an invaluable contribution to the education of our students. The Hillsboro School District appreciates the service and dedicated volunteers to assist professional educators by offering their time, encouragement, and meaningful contact with students. The Hillsboro School District acknowledges that volunteers are called upon to assist teachers and staff with the day-to-day activities involved in providing a balanced education for our students and are an important part of a team that strives to ensure that each one of our students succeeds. The Hillsboro School District thank volunteers for spending innumerable hours serving schools as chaperones, mentors, after-school tutors, club leaders, booster club members, PTA, PTO, and PAC members, guest speakers, classroom helpers, athletics coaches, and in countless other ways. The Hillsboro School District Board of Directors do hereby proclaim the week of April 17th to the 21st, 2023 to be Volunteer Appreciation Week. We urge all community members to join us in recognizing the many contributions and achievements of volunteers to the development and prosperity of our community. We are at the point in the evening where I move that the Board of Directors approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
It's been moved by me and seconded by Director Ward that the Board of Directors approve the agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? I would just add discussion on my part that if you're watching at home or you're here, you will notice that this board meeting is taking an unusual shape that is represented in the agenda. The way that came about is, as some of you know, we were working to try to have an extra long board meeting tonight to review the candidates for superintendent with our search committee. We knew that that was an ambitious timeline and they were unable to meet that deadline. So when we had to shift gears, we will be having a 4 or 5 hour meeting and executive session next Tuesday. It seemed like one of the best options we had was to be respectful of the amount of commitment and time board members already dedicate to this volunteer position and try to make tonight as brief as possible so that we can make room in our schedules for next Tuesday being 4 or 5 hours. So just that's a little background on how we ended up down here in regular session at 5:15 as opposed to 7 where we normally are. I hope it's not too inconvenient for everyone. And I appreciate the patience and extra time that all of our board members are going to be giving to the district in the coming weeks as we hopefully wrap up our search for a new superintendent. Any other discussion on the agenda? That's all about the agenda. So I've already said the move. All right, so any discussion? None. Is there anyone in opposition to the approval of the agenda? All right, that motion carries. Rose, do we have any audience time? We do not. Okay. Consent agenda. I move that the board of directors approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
It's been moved by me and seconded by Director Ward that the board of directors approve the consent agenda as printed. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection? All right, the consent agenda is approved. All right. On to our work at hand. Beth, you have information for us about the inter-district transfer plan?
I do. And for those of you who are here in person, I did hand you a hard copy of the updated interdistrict transfer plan. For those of you joining online, fear not, the version that you saw in your board folder over the weekend changed only very slightly, and really just in the description of which grade levels were open and what the parameters would be at Lincoln Street and Newberry. But otherwise, this is largely what you had access to over the weekend. So we are proposing opening 120 slots for incoming interdistrict transfer students for next school year. And we are also proposing allowing 70 of our HSD students to transfer out if that is what works best for them and their families. And you can see the details of where there are openings and at what grade levels. And this would, upon your approval of this plan, it would be posted to our district website under our interdistrict transfers page. And we would start accepting transfer applications April 1st through May 15th.
All right. Are there any questions for Beth?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Sure.
I was wondering how the proposed numbers that we have on the attached chart compare with the number of requests we received in the past year.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, it's always a bit of a guessing game with determining these numbers of open slots and how many students to release. And somehow we always get real close to what the reality is. So we don't find ourselves within this window anyway. For example, receiving lots more applications than we've decided to open, for example. So last year we opened 100 slots. We did not, during the time of the enrollment period, receive, for example, 120. We received very close to 100, which was nice because then we didn't have to do the equitable lottery system. Now, that's not to say that we don't receive hardship requests through the year, but it's kind of hard to avoid that because families find themselves in different situations throughout the year, and we will routinely get hardship requests regardless of what we open up during this time.
Do we tend to be able to honor a hardship request during the year?
As long as they meet the hardship criteria, then and if they can get a release from their home district because it requires action from
Sure.
both, then we try to be as accommodating as we can.
We've been joined by Director Lopez and Director Thomas. Just a note, and Mike, you have something to add too?
Yeah, I would just add, Patrick, to your question. Beth and her team have a lot of historical context and data that they've tracked over the years. So, it's, Beth's being humble. It's more than a guess. It is. It's an informed
That's
approximation.
true.
Let's put it that way.
Mm.
And based on the circumstances of the year and what's happening in the region, then the number goes up and down a little bit, but have been super close year after year on this. So Beth and her team does a really nice job.
Are there any other questions regarding the inter-district transfer plan as presented in, well, it was in the board update, really, right?
Yeah, so
okay.
There's only been 2 minor tweaks.
Okay. All right, would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors adopt the inter-district transfers plan for the 2023-24 school year. Second.
It's been moved by Director Ward and seconded by Director Thomas that the Board of Directors adopt the inter-district transfers plan for the 2023-24 school year. Is there any further discussion? Thanks for all your hard work on this, Beth. Rose, can you call the roll, please?
I'm assuming it was me. Aye.
We're working on a microphone, but yes, it was you, Sheehan. Thank you.
Erica Lopez.
Aye.
Patrick McGuire,
Aye.
Monique Ward,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries. All right. Next action item is regarding the OSAA cooperative sponsorship application, much like our swimming, and
Exactly. I got it.
who's taking this with you?
Yep,
All right.
it is like our swimming. So you may remember that OSAA allows for schools to combine resources under special conditions. And when that occurs, the board is required to take action. In this particular case, Century and Liberty High School would like to combine efforts to have a JV2 softball team. Doing that will allow the kids that would have to be cut from the team if we didn't have that opportunity to still play. So it's purely a numbers issue and allowing for greater participation by doing this. So I would recommend that the board approve the cooperative sponsor application and allow for greater participation with those two schools.
And I believe we asked earlier, so this is just for games that the JV students at Liberty will practice with the varsity and the JV students at Century will practice. So they're not having to go across town each day just for games.
Yep, that's correct. And they will join forces for games.
Is there any other questions for Mike about the OSAA combined application?
Just a general question, is the presuming, but don't want to presume, confirming that the coaches are in favor of this and it is their desire on behalf of the kids?
It's actually the schools that put in the application.
Got it.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, like, and the coaches are the ones who, okay,
Correct.
Yeah.
They have to request this.
any other questions regarding the sponsorship application? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the cooperative sponsorship application.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Lopez and seconded by Director Ward that the Board of Directors approve the cooperative sponsorship application. Is there any further discussion? I'm glad we're doing all we can to make sure people can play sports. That's all. Yeah, like, got students who want to play. I'm glad that we do what we can to make sure that they can play. Rose, can you call the roll, please?
Sheehan Kim,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Patrick McGuire,
Aye.
Monique Ward,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye, motion carries. Next up is, are you guys dual presenting this? Oh, Travis is getting up. All right.
Travis definitely has the most to share for this part of the presentation.
Okay.
But I thought I would kick it off and just acknowledge the fact that you had both the 4-page version of the strategic plan and the full 26-page version. They are in the packet. And thank you, Monique, for asking a few questions, pointing out one typo. If anyone else notices anything else that we need to make sure and fix before we go to print, please let us know. And so as Travis will explain in these slides, the strategic plan really is our integrated guidance plan, and he's going to go into detail about how that all fits together.
Thank you, Beth. Kira, thank you for helping me drive. I also may have the chance to use a laser pointer, so that's why I'm standing up here. I wouldn't miss that opportunity to talk about math. So the integrated guidance is the name that ODE has lended to the new process for continuous improvement for districts in Oregon. So every one of 197 districts will submit an integrated guidance plan. And tonight the ask of you is to approve our application. And it's complicated because our strategic plan, like Beth said, is our integrated guidance plan. And with some additional metrics that I want to share with you that'll be reviewed by ODE and then reapproved by you in June. So hold tight while I try to explain this complicated new process. It's a good process that especially Michelle Morrison and I have lobbied for several years, that our grant narratives and our budget sync up in Oregon across multiple grants toward common purpose. So hopefully you'll see that and see what our plan is to be submitted next week. I've showed this. Oh, sorry, I'm not driving. Kira, you've seen this slide before, and this is kind of the 2 and 4 year cycle that the Oregon Department of Education has proposed for this grant application. You can see that our 4-year strategic plan cycle will map onto the gold bar there, starting this spring when we submit our first plan. Go ahead, one more slide, please. Grants like the High School Success Act, formerly known as Measure 98, Student Investment Account, and our CTE Perkins grant will all sync up into this integrated guidance narrative, which is our strategic plan. And all that resource will be leveraged to meet our common goals for students in HSD. One more slide, please. There's a footnote I like to point out that says districts are highly encouraged over time to align any and all strategic planning processes to the timing and rhythms within this guidance, rather than running separate plans. So congratulations to HSD. We're feeling great that we have fully synced up our strategic planning process, all the community engagement with all of the grant requirements under integrated guidance. Keep going, one more, please. So right now we're in the initial window for an application, and I'll show you right now 4 components of what that application is for integrated guidance. And then a quality assurance panel will review our application. And in June, I believe that they'll come back to districts with any edits that they suggest. And then the board will be asked to reapprove the longitudinal performance growth targets, which I will show you graphics of tonight. I think that's the one part that you'll have to reapprove after the review. Keep moving, please. The integrated guidance has 4 components. One is the plan, and that's also known as our strategic plan. The second part is a budget template, which you'll see a screenshot of that Michelle Morrison has shared last board meeting. For example, the SIA budget items that go into that integrated guidance template. So the board, I feel like through your budget process, is already aware of where we put the money in those different grants, and that's what will go to ODE next week. There's also the integrated guidance application, which is a SurveyMonkey interface where we'll copy and paste some compliance paragraphs into a SurveyMonkey, and we'll link our strategic plan and these graphics that I'll share tonight. All that'll go into a SurveyMonkey as our official application. And then the longitudinal performance targets are one exhibit, just 5 goals that you'll see tonight. That's what will be approved by ODE. And tonight, when you vote to approve our application, you're approving me hitting go on that SurveyMonkey interface with those component pieces. Keep going, please. So here's the plan. It's the strategic plan. I've said that 5 times already, but it's important to know that in not every district is the strategic plan fully synced up here, but that when someone asks you, what's your integrated guidance plan? You say, well, here's our strategic plan. You can hand them the flyer, or you can show them the plan in its entirety. Next slide, please, Kira. Next is the budget. One more, please. This is a screenshot of the template that was provided for us. Basically, you'll see here in the small font, you can see the 5 goals from our strategic plan, our longitudinal performance targets. And then across the top of the spreadsheet, you can see the investment of Perkins grant dollars, high school success, and SIA. We basically go through and figure out, in order to meet the goals of our strategic plan, where do we invest our state grant dollars? One more slide, please. One more. The application will be, again, a cut and paste into that SurveyMonkey. And here you can see a narrative that Beth crafted about our community engagement process and the needs assessment process. And those are required when we do a strategic plan and also for the integrated guidance. We, on the right, have a checklist of all the different groups in our community that we check the boxes on for, did you engage these groups via surveys, focus groups, interviews, feedback opportunities. And so we were really proud of our list as we check those boxes on our engagement process and our needs assessment process. One more slide, please. And then the longitudinal performance targets. I do want to spend 5 minutes tonight telling you about the math that we've done on these targets. In 4 years, we will achieve these goals by being really focused on how we invest in our students. So one more, please. The 5 goals from our strategic plan you've already reviewed: success in the early years up through graduation, ready for career, college, and life. And each one of these goals have multiple metrics behind them. There's a list of 14 and a bunch of focal groups who we know need extra support from us in order to meet the metrics we have. But we're going to call out 5 and actually 6 goals if you put together grad rate and then the 5-year completer rate aligned to these that we're going to be very public about. And we're going to give the board updates and the community updates on our website of how we're doing over the next 4 years in these 5 areas, given some really specific targets. So go ahead and advance one more, please. This is all of our metrics behind the scenes that we'll be monitoring, and these will be part of school improvement plans. But the big focus ones are these. Go ahead, one more slide, please. Oh, sorry. We also have this sort of a preamble. We call this our equity stance. And if you were to read this and know that for all of our goals, students who identify as Native American, Latina, Latino, Latinx, Black, African, African American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, multiracial, emerging bilinguals, students who are identified as talented and gifted, and students who experience disabilities, foster care, poverty, and/or houselessness, and students who identify as LGBTQ2 SIA+ will get the support they need, ensuring that the rate of improvement as measured by our metrics and performance targets for our traditionally underserved students allows them to achieve at the same levels as students who have traditionally benefited from our school system. You'd see kind of the heart behind these metrics for us. You'd see that for every metric, we have the data for these groups, but we also are going to focus on the groups that are statistically the lowest performing toward these targets and support them most and most strategically. So we expect for all these metrics to show growth across student groups, but we have pulled out focal groups for you to review tonight, and that'll be part of our plan. So with that said, go ahead. So for 3rd grade reading, this table would show you in a snapshot what the targets are. The percentage of students proficient in reading in 3rd grade is our target, among other metrics, and that 70% of all students will read at grade level by 3rd grade, measured by running records, which I'll show you in just a second. And that the equity focal group for this category would be students identified as Hispanic, Latina, Latino, Latinx, and students accessing special education services. So this is the way to read it if you are into reading tables, but each one of the subsequent slides shows you a picture of what that target looks like for us in the next 4 years. So I won't read through these, you have them to review, but go ahead with the next slide, please. This one shows you the thought process behind how we build the longitudinal growth targets. And what we've done in the squiggly line is taken a median of the last 4 or 5 years of performance for HSD and figured out how to set a baseline. And then the smooth line is how we would show a smooth slope to show what the growth would be like for the all students group, quote unquote. And then for each of the more, the steeper slopes, we're showing gap closure for groups that would be our focal groups to get to the same point as all students would in the next 4 years. So each one of these looks like a comet with 3 little tails. One would be the growth slope for all students in HSD, and then the catch up or the gap closure slope would be for those focal groups to actually accelerate up to that same point. All students grow, we give students support to meet the common targets. All right, go ahead, one more. So in this one, you can see our baseline data is at 57% across there. This would be 3rd grade reading. And you can see growth rate for all students would be from 60.42, which today would be the number of 3rd graders demonstrating grade level proficiency in reading, up to 70% for all students by the end of this strategic plan. Now, this doesn't mean that kids can't read at all who are not in that group, but these would be students who are demonstrating grade level or above proficiency in reading in their Spanish running records or English running records or both in HSD today. And then you'll see our focal groups would be students identified as Hispanic, Latina, Latino, Latinx, and students accessing special education services would be the green and the pink line respectively. And that would mean that each of those focal groups would receive special attention and make catch-up growth over the next 4 years in order to meet that 70% reading at grade 3. This is the first of our longitudinal performance growth targets. These are required under SIA, but we've adapted them to show what our data is and what our focal groups are in HSD. With a click of a button, we can also show you all the other focal groups by race and by program identification in HSD, and we'll be watching those. But these are the ones that we'll focus on in the next 4 years consistently. Next slide, thank you. Oh, that was good. Good timing. Under goal 2, safe and supported learners, we have increased the percentage of regular attendees to 90% or better. Again, you can see our baseline right now is set at 68.7. That is, if we were to do nothing to improve attendance, we would expect that would be the number of kids who attend 90% of days or better. If we do well, we'll see all students go from 71 to 80% attendance in 4 years. And then you can see focal groups here, students identified as American Indian and Alaska Native, and students identified as Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander are the focal groups we've selected to focus on to get up to that 80% by having a steeper growth in the number of students who attend 90+% of days in school in those focal groups. All right, we'll advance one more. You've seen a little bit of data last board meeting from Ryan Petrick about our analysis of who's participating in extracurriculars. And we're going back to that data set to refine it a little bit more and include some of particularly the elementary options like Chess for Success or after school clubs at the elementary level to add to the OSAA sports and the big data dig that Ryan has done. So we're going to come back to the board and set a baseline for those. But whatever data set you look at right now, our focal groups end up being the students identified as Hispanic, Latino, Latina, Latinx, and students who are identified as female in our data systems. We have gaps to close there. So in 4 years, whatever our baseline is, you'll see gap closure for those 2 focal groups in participation in extracurricular activities. One more, please. Under goal 4 of critical thinking and problem solving, the growth target is increase the percentage of high school students on track for graduation. And here you can see HSD, the baseline for HSD being 84%, the dotted line across. And you can see the goal going from 86-ish to 95% of ninth graders being on track. Focal groups are students identified as Hispanic, Latina, Latino, and Latinx, and students accessing special education services in green and pink. And the slope that we would need to support those students to being 95% on track in 4 years. And then finally, we have grad rate and 5-year completion rate. This one is obvious. I think this is an area of success for HSD. We also are required under SIA to have this as one of our growth metrics. And you can see that our baseline data here is 86.24. So if we did nothing, you predict that our grad rate would stay consistent. But if we can improve our grad rates to 88.8% for all students in a 4-year span, and then with particular focus on these focal groups of students experiencing homelessness and students experiencing foster care, you will see a big effort at these focal groups that are small and smaller in number than some of our larger demographic like racial groups and gender groups. But these are groups that have lagged in grad rate in the past 4 years when we look at the median. These are groups that we've identified as needing extra help for the duration of our strategic plan. Again, we can click a button and show you different demographic groups by race and program affiliation, but these are the groups we've called out as our focal groups for grad rate and for 5-year completion rate. Some of the programs we have, for example, at the Pathways Center would help reach these students, re-engage students, and help them complete in 4 or 5 years. So there's a lot that goes into these. I'm happy to answer questions, but these are the data sets that'll go to ODE for that quality assurance panel review in the next 2 months. And it's our belief that they'll come back with either recommended improvements for our performance targets, or they'll just hand them back to the board for reapproval in June. There are 2 more slides, and then we can just open it up for questions. Again, we're here in this initial application window. Tonight, your action would be to approve HSD applying, and this being our application. This slide deck itself will be posted next to our strategic plan on our website for the public to view as our application. And then click one more, please, Kira. The next steps would be that the quality assurance learning panel would approve our goals and targets, and that the board action we think would be the reapproval or the final approval of the longitudinal performance should say growth targets there in June or July. If they don't come back to us, it might be something that we do at a retreat in August, but just depending on when ODE gets back to us, we'll let the board know when to take action on those to finalize that. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you for letting me take time to explain some math and go over those graphs.
Does anybody have questions for Travis?
Just an incredible amount of work. And it's also nice to see all the work we did on the strategic plan that then goes into this and the intersectionality of the two. That's sometimes we don't always get to see that. So this is where the proverbial rubber hits the road and we are actually driving and we're actually making progress. So hit the button, my friend, and let's get this done.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Other questions? So this is, it meets that qualification. We're not that far into, when do we have to redo our SIA non-competitive grant application?
That will be this.
That would be, so that, so it's kind of, okay.
Yep.
So they are kind of the same thing, just so the renaming was just what they're calling the SIA grant.
The SIA grant, our Perkins CTE grant, our high school success,
So they're combining them all. OD wants to combine them all into one.
one narrative and one consolidated budget template. So
Okay.
what Michelle shared last time would go alongside this narrative, which is our strategic plan, goals, and all of our commitments to our students. And that lives as our application for SIA.
All right.
Same folks who used to look at a separate Perkins grant for CTE would look at that same document and say, oh, okay, the SIA dollars, the 98 and the CTE are all going toward the same ends, which we have advocated for. Michelle's
Right.
been the best advocate for this in the state, I believe, about streamlining that application process and leveraging those dollars even more powerfully. Every dollar goes a little farther when it's meeting those common goals. So that's the goal. And I appreciate her work and ODE's leadership in consolidating this.
Right, and time for staff is better spent creating one thing as opposed to three things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our experience going, for example, to our parent advisory committees on 14 different grants, it's a lot more sensible for us to go to our PACs and say, hey, here's our vision, here's our strategic plan, inform us here, and then know that our dollars are going toward that rather than going back and checking every time for every nickel and dime. So we appreciate the community engagement and the needs assessment process. It has been, Nancy, thank you for recognizing that, a ton of work in the last year to get us here, but our collaboration with Lauren has been really fruitful, and our strategic plan is something to be proud of, and to hitch our grant applications to that will make it more meaningful. So thank you for that.
Beth, you're supposed to share the spotlight. Is there anything else you want to add? This serves as our first reading for the strategic plan as well, right?
Yes, and I just wanted to highlight that the strategic plan itself as its own individual entity is going on first reading, and then you'll make a motion to approve the application for integrated guidance.
And just a technicality, I guess, like if anybody finds another typo, it
Yep.
doesn't invalidate our first reading. We just fix the typo, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Any other questions for, so since this is also a presentation of the first reading of the strategic plan, are there any questions for Beth? Again, thank you for all the hard work that everyone's been doing on this. And thank you, Nancy, for being part of that committee. I know it was a ton of time, but I think it was, hopefully it was pretty rewarding. Seems like it was awesome. Would anybody like to would you like to make a motion, maybe?
I move that the Board of Directors approve the cooperative sponsorship application.
Nope, not that one.
Not, yes. Yeah, I move that the board, no, not the policy, the districts.
Number
the
4.
Integrated guidance. Oh. It's 4?
Yeah.
No, I'm on it. That one. This one.
Yeah.
Apologies. I move that the Board of Directors approve the District 23-2027 integrated guidance application.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Thomas and seconded by Director Lopez that the Board of Directors approve the district's 23 through 2027 integrated guidance application. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have something real quick, Mark.
Go for it.
Yeah, two things I wanted to say. First of all, I'm really excited to support this plan. I think it has a huge amount of input from the community and expert work, and I think it's really a great map for our district. Um, Honestly, the one small reservation I have is that I wish it were possible to be even more ambitious than 70% on the third grade literacy levels. I know that that's already an extremely ambitious number, but just given how important this is, I wish it were possible to go even higher, but I respect that the plan was crafted with a view of what the most significant and meaningful progress we could make would be with the resources we have. So I appreciate the plan, but I want to keep pushing us to find ways to go even higher on the early literacy.
Erica?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, to Patrick's, is if some of these, like what happens if we hit some of those goals earlier? Is there a chance to update or move that number up higher? Is one of my questions. And then the other thing, I just wanted to also say that I love the way that the presentation was crafted. I think it's very easy to read and to share our goals with community. And I also like that we had just a well-rounded group of individuals participate, and that was called out in the report, because it is very just the information that's laid out is very helpful to read.
Any other comments or questions? I see Travis shake. You want to grab a microphone and answer Erica's question? Sure.
I wanted to respond to Director Lopez's question that if say we outperformed the first year of reading data, so we grew 5% in the first year, we could recalibrate and redraw those lines. And we could do that for each of the groups. I think the Department of Education's plan is to be really flexible in supporting us with that. So I look at this as a live document, that we wouldn't just snap this line today and then say that that's all we're interested in accomplishing. If we were to outperform it, we would raise the bar.
So Travis, to Patrick's point, it on its face, it does look like some of the bars are a little low. Now, so I prefaced that by saying on its face. Reality is that those are probably not exactly low when you look at national averages, statewide averages, that type of thing. So is this the kind of situation, and remember I'm new, that we blow through it, we make it, we hit the mark, and then we come back, just like you just told Erica, that we recalculate and say, we are so awesome, we surpassed this. Who do we get to tell when we meet, we'll go past that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Who do we get to tell that we did it, we surpassed it, and that we're making the next effort to get even better?
We can shout it from the rooftops if we'd like to. I would be proud if we were to outperform these goals. I would be proud. We do hem and haw about how to set a SMART goal, something that is specific and measurable and achievable. You know all about SMART goals.
Yeah.
So in education, it's just such a difficult question to ask. How far do you believe students can grow in 4 years? And how do we do that with the resources we have?
Understand.
There's no great answer. We should set everything at 100%.
Right.
If you ask any of us. Then we look at what's measurable. We used, so we did get from the Oregon Department of Education and the ESD some data on what the highest performing, like the 90th percentile of districts can do in annual growth in a measure like reading or grad rate. And we use those to calibrate. So what do the best districts in the universe do to raise grad rate, and what's that annual percentage growth? And that we use that to tip our line. And so we do hold ourselves, our goals are representative of what a very high performing district would be able to accomplish in 4 years.
Okay.
So I feel good about it based on that sort of regional data, at least from the statewide look. When we meet those goals, I think we'll be exemplary. People already look to HSD in things like grad rate. We outperform expectations in grad rate. They look at our participation in CTE programs and say, how do you get 10 percentage point gain on kids who graduate at a 10 percentage point higher than their classmates who are involved in CTE? And then how do you get 95% of your students in a career pathway? So we already kind of shout from the rooftops some of our strategies that we're proud of. Third grade literacy will be one where when we meet that goal, it'll be because we attended to students' bilingualism, helping them read in Spanish or English or both. And we're already looked at as an exemplary dual language school district, but we have a lot of work to do in the next 4 years. I am always nervous that like, can we meet that goal in 4 years? Because we've set the goal so high. So I'm with Patrick. I'm with everybody who says, why not 100% of third graders reading? But we have a lot to contend with coming out of the pandemic with students having been learning online. And we have a lot of mobility still in our area. Housing instability is real. Students moving into our area and out of our area, house to house. We have a lot to contend with. We can do it. But I'm proud of these goals, the way they were set by a team of educators and with a lot of local input. So.
Thank you, because I think that's the back half of Patrick, the inquiry, like, because in your mind you think, oh, well, why isn't it going to be 100%? And then the other issue, of course, is how do you test all of this? How do you accurately and equitably measure this, right? That also is a part of this as well. So thank you, appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I would say similar instinct my first reaction when I saw that first reading slide was, wow, those lines are steep. And then I saw 70%. I immediately thought, oh, I wish it would, like, sure, those lines are steep, but I wish it were better. Right. So I think all of us probably had a similar reaction to that. So yeah, my first thought was, wow, those lines are steep. Can we do it? And I was like, 70. Oh yeah, we should be able to do it. All right. Is there any further discussion? All right, Rose, can you call the roll, please?
Ian Kim,
Aye.
Erica Lopez,
Aye.
Patrick McGuire,
Aye.
Monique Ward,
Aye.
Nancy Thomas,
Aye.
Mark Watson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. In the words of the vice chair, push the button, my friend. Do we have Michelle with us online?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well tonight, thank you.
We have your financial report with us in the packet. Is there anything you would like to add for context today?
On the financial report, probably just the highlight, the Hillsboro highlight, which is one of our strategies to support our principals and instructional leaders. Been working with Jordan Beveridge and Megan Nace on making sure that we can transition students who have been accessing the internet through hotspots, transition to Hillsboro Highlight where available in Hillsboro, and then working with the city to kind of be strategic about how and where they are connecting with families. So that's been an exciting thing that happened over the last month. As far as the rest of the financial report, I don't have any comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Michelle?
Mark.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, I'm going to mention I have a couple small questions I'm going to follow up by email with Michelle about regarding the paid leave program that she called out. Ms. Punkachar and Ms. Fisk have been working on. I just want to understand that better, but I'll follow up by email on that.
Thank you, Patrick. That paid family leave Oregon is unfolding as we speak. So I'm happy to share more information as it comes available to us.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Our next item is ARs, I believe, right? Yes, ARs. So again, we don't approve these, but want to be made aware. So if anybody has questions, looks like Travis is the go-to person for these two ARs. Feel free to send him your questions regarding those. As well, we have, as often come in tandem, we have some policies there as well that are on first reading that also have Travis listed. So If you have questions regarding any of the ARs or policies listed in our packet today, reach out to Travis and he'll get you an answer. All right. I want to thank our representatives from HCU and HEA for being with us at an unusual time today. I appreciate you having flexibility in your schedule, and we are ready for your reports if you would like. Yeah, follow Travis. I would have to do the same thing.
Okay, so good evening, School Board Chair Watson, Superintendent Scott, and Cabinet members. I am Melody Hanson, President of Hillsboro Classified United. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to speak with you on behalf of HSD classified staff. I will be keeping my comments short tonight because of the special order of business at hand for the school board. I had the opportunity to travel to Salem last week to advocate for school funding and to speak to some of the bills that would support classified employees in Oregon. We talked about sustainable K-12 funding, along with a support package for classified staff, classified workers who support special education and special education students. This includes adequate funding levels and, getting lost on my phone here. This includes adequate staffing levels and training, equipment, and other supports for the staff. I had the privilege of meeting with Representative McLean and Senator Solomon. They were both very responsive to our conversations, being they are both highly involved with education, either through previous involvement with this board and or family members working in the schools and in the industry. They understand the situations that we are facing and are fighting every day to help support not only the classified staff, but the students and other educators in Oregon. Last week was Classified Appreciation Week in Oregon, and I want to express our appreciation for the classified staff of Hillsboro School District once again. We were able to visit all of the work sites and deliver baskets of treats to the classified employees, and I would once again like to say thank you and that we appreciate you. As I wrap up my time this evening, I want to again express our gratitude for the continued collaborative process we've engaged with throughout the year with this board and the district. We trust in the leadership of our school board and know that you will keep the needs of our students, staff, and community at the heart of what you do. And we look forward to the continued partnership through this transition. And we thank you for this time this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Watson, Vice Chair Thomas, fellow board members, Superintendent Scott, and administrative leaders. The communication with our building reps is ongoing to guide our members to write referrals for significant disruptive behavior and file an incident report if an injury occurs. This work is important to us as student referrals tell a story and they help bring additional resources to our buildings that can support our student community. As I mentioned last month, this year, we have been hard at work collaborating with the school district to advocate for our SPED educators, students, and their families. The joint HEA-HSD Student Services Workload Committee was formed in December to review caseloads, as well as address workload needs and potential solutions. To fulfill the contract language, the committee composed and distributed a survey to our SPED staff. We are currently working on reviewing the responses so that we can continue to advocate for improvements in working conditions for our members. Last month, I boldly asked legislators for $10.4 billion to fund education. A few weeks ago, I managed to reach Representative McLean as she was walking onto the House floor to advocate for SPED. If you haven't heard of Senate Bill 819, please take a moment to review it and how it will impact school districts. I shared the following information with our state perspective in mind for SPED educators. A March 27 implementation date is unrealistic for the current state of our schools, where many SPED positions are vacant and SPED teachers and aides have walked off the job this year because of concussions, broken ankles, broken noses, and other injuries sustained from students with behavior needs. We all want to support our students, but we need time to put systems in place. Schools are already struggling to meet current reporting requirements due to being short-staffed. Adding a new reporting system requirement like the 30 days in Senate Bill 819 puts additional pressure on our SPED staff. We hear stories every day of SPED teachers who can't complete their paperwork during their regular workday because they're responding to students in crisis. So they're putting in 50 plus hours a week by taking paperwork home with them to complete and meet current reporting requirements. Schools are understaffed, and we're working hard at recruiting and retaining more folks in education. This bill puts pressure on them that will only compound the issue of retaining current staff who are already stretched thin. I was able to get this in writing to Senator McClain so that she could advocate for education that day. The second week of February, we celebrated our Counselor Appreciation Week, and the following week, HEA hosted a week-long series of virtual counseling listening sessions to address concerns dealing with working conditions and caseload. We've heard many common themes, and we're looking to address these concerns so that our counselors can continue to do the important work of supporting our students. We just set a date today to meet with HSD's Brooke Nova, and we look forward to collaborating to problem solve on behalf of our council. HEA has interviewed and endorsed positions for Sheen Ken, 5, Yvette Montoya, and 7, Patrick McGuire. We're pleased that they share our educator values, and they recognize the importance of our union work. Lastly, I've enjoyed getting to know many of you outside of Robert's Rules of Order and coming to the agreement that we all want workloads that are manageable and working conditions that are safe for our educators so that they feel respected, valued, and safe. In addition, we all want our students' learning conditions to be conducive to learning with all the possible resources that ensure they graduate career and college learning. We hope you have a wonderful spring break and come back recharged for the final 11 weeks of the school year. Be safe, be well, and happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, superintendent's time.
Thank you. I too appreciate our labor partners. We have the opportunity to meet on a regular basis. Just yesterday, we met with the HCU leadership, Melody and Kira, and are always working to identify issues that need addressed. Let's put it that way. So we continue to appreciate that partnership. I'd like to thank a few people. First of all, probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, Michelle started talking with ODE and the state level and rallying folks really to have conversations about how we can be more efficient in the reporting that we're doing, how we can align some of those requirements. And I think you're seeing some of that work pay off today in the presentation that was made. Special thanks to Travis and Beth, who have been working to facilitate the construction of the strategic plan. We appreciate all that leadership that's going on. And I'm pretty sure you recognize, and I hope you appreciate the work that's being done to accelerate the growth needed for some of our focus groups to hit the mark in a timely manner. So that continues to be a focus area for us. Also, thank you to the board. I know that next week you will have a really long meeting. And so I appreciate all the work that you're putting in. And I'll wrap up by saying, Beth, thanks for spending your birthday with us this evening with all your favorite people. So happy birthday to you.
All right, we can begin online. Who do I see on the most left? Sheehan, do you have anything you want to add tonight?
No, nothing other than happy birthday, Beth. Hopefully
Thank you.
have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thankfully, it's a shorter meeting than normal. And then other than that, yeah, looking forward to next week. I'm hoping that baby girl stays put until next week. And so looking forward to the review of candidates next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, do you have anything you want to share tonight?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks. Patrick, anything you want to share tonight?
Yes, briefly, I'd like to say happy Pi Day to everyone. I don't know if we have any former math educators in the room with us, but it's always a pleasure. I remember as a young boy celebrating Pi Day at mental math competitions, and so I'm sure a lot of our schools are doing fun events today. So happy Pi Day to everyone.
right. Monique, anything you want to share tonight?
Just to say thanks again to everyone in cabinet for always going above and beyond in answering a lot of the questions that I have, and even at odd hours of the night. Rose, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Nancy, anything you want to share tonight?
I just wanted to say to HEA and HCU, that it occurred to me tonight as I was listening to the reports that there's a great intersectionality between my day job and my number one volunteer job. And what I mean is in my day job, I have coined the phrase of saying, protecting the humans that deliver the human services. And people are starting to repeat that now. They're finally getting it. And I would love to come up with one that's applicable for teachers and for staff. I think I had almost forgotten that you are in the same situation. And most people don't like to think of our children as being able to bring harm to the staff. Most people don't understand that, but I do understand that. And it's a very scary time. I acknowledge that the teachers and the staff are somewhat restricted. And that restriction, quite frankly, is what puts them in harm's way a lot. And I want us as a board to make sure that we don't ever forget that we have to take care of the humans that take care of the children. And in most of these cases, these humans are with our children more than their parents are. And I hope that when we choose our new superintendent, which I don't want to, but we have to, that they will understand that as well. But I just wanted to publicly say that. It's again, for me, it's the intersection of my life, the professional job and the volunteer job. But please don't ever think that we don't recognize that and acknowledge that. It's important. We have got to make sure that we protect our teachers so that they can do the absolute most incredible job that anybody could ever have. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. All right. Again, I want to thank everyone for their patience with our unusual format tonight. We will be conducting a 4 or 5 hour meeting 1 week from today, and then getting ready for spring break. So if you missed the beginning, so that's why we're having this unusual meeting here, is to try to be so respectful of board member volunteer time and not ask them for an even excessive amount of hours in the month of March. So again, thank you for everybody for your patience and flexibility to help make this happen. I guess, Rose, we're pretty sure we will have someone from the consulting firm with us, right? So strong online component, strong virtual and in-person component. Rose will probably send some kind of survey later to figure out if you're planning to be here or not. I guess one last plug. We don't have our students with us tonight because I think it was a little bit disruptive and scheduled to reschedule for them, but we are in the midst of renewing our search for student representation on the board. So if you know an outstanding student in your school or in your community that think would do a great job representing student voice on our board, we would love to have them apply. All the information is available on our website. I'm sure Beth's got that all figured out. We'll be reaching out to all of the schools. This time it will be Liberty and Hill High. No, Century and Hill High. Glencoe and Century. We have Century now? Oh, B, right, okay, gotcha. Glencoe, Hill High, and Oak Street. All right, Glencoe, Hill High, and Oak Street. So, you know, and then I guess also if you are a board member who is interested in serving on the search committee, Give Rose a heads up that you would be willing to do that. We'll probably discuss it first April meeting, maybe. Second April meeting, sort of scheduling and so we try to do most of the interviews in one day, so it's not too disruptive of your life, but yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Almost an hour, a little bit over, but yeah. All right, we'll see you all, and not all. Cabinet, I think you do not have to come next time. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.